Hello and welcome back to the podcast, or welcome to your first podcast episode. I'm so excited because today I get to introduce you to feel like I can already say great friend of mine, even though we're new friends. And she's just amazing. So I'm going to let her introduce herself and then I'll tell you a little bit about how we connected. Chelsea, thank you so much for being here.
I am so excited to be here and thank you for those kind words. I feel the same. I am Chelsea Burns. I am the CEO and founder of The Marketing Psychologist and also the co-founder of Mumford& Burns Consulting. I bring about 16 years of lived experience as a marketer in so many different industries and am combining that with applied psychology in what I selfishly claim is a pretty unique way. But yeah, it kind of led us here, actually. I had made a post about some research I did in my graduate studies. And Amanda, you just left the most authentic and genuine comment, which is so rare on LinkedIn anymore. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like we connected so quickly and it became um, just such a strong, what did you say earlier? Rising
Yeah.
tide relationship.
It really does feel like that. And it's so interesting that you said that it was such a genuine response. It was like, you scroll through no matter what social media it is, and you see people and like ask a question. And, as the person who has asked questions and heard crickets on the other side, when I genuinely have an answer to something or I think something's funny, I try really, really hard to put some time and effort into a response because I know it means so much. And your question was so wonderful. I'm going to paraphrase here, but it was basically about loneliness and how do you connect with others as a female entrepreneur. And I was like, I've got so much to say. So
Yes,
I
yeah.
wrote in there, and it was really neat to see other people's, responses to that as well.
Yeah, and that's really kind of been the thing that has taken off as far as, thought leadership and presentation of content on LinkedIn. And as a marketing psychologist and someone who is really on a mission to help businesses recenter around humanity, that's what I'm here for. And so I tell people all the time, your audience will tell you what they want.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you, they will show you, and that's what they will show up for. And so I'm no fool. And I am continuing to build on that. And so that's why I was so excited to join you here today and to just dig kind of right into how my research, honestly, is directly connected to what you're doing as an accountability coach.
It's so neat. And so I'm going to rewind the tapes a minute to like catch everyone up because I feel like it's so fun when people tell me all the time, I listen to your podcast and it's like I am just sitting and having a conversation or listening in on a
I love that.
conversation. So I got to catch everyone up. So basically, you and I connected, you were doing some research, looking at things and I responded. But then at the end of our conversation, so at the end of our just chit chat conversation call, you said, Amanda, how do you know when it's time to hire a coach? Because I know it works scientifically, but money feels different now that I'm a full time entrepreneur. And I thought, are you willing to have this conversation on the podcast? And I say that because so many people will think this and almost not even ask. I do have very brave people who will reach out and say, Amanda, I don't know if it's time for me to have a coach. Can I just have a call? And I always say yes to that, just so everyone knows. But I thought we could talk through how that showed up for you, how coaching works, how especially as psychologist, having support in some way works, but you're like, is it the right time? I don't know, like all the grappling.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucky for you, I am an external processor. So I didn't even have to think about whether or not I would have this conversation on a podcast, which, by the way, is the first time that I'm going to be hashing through this conversation. But I think it's going to be fantastic. And it's important to note too that as we didn't have that conversation and then it just died. I have actually been thinking about this and having in real life conversations with my partner and my friends and my business partner about coaching and when's the right time. So to get right to your question, I know it works because I did empirical research specifically on the sense of belonging as a psychological construct, which is important when it comes to defining it, but in female entrepreneurs. And interestingly enough, while I was in my graduate program, I was actually the VP of marketing for a global business coaching company and working with fairly high percentage of female entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs. And so it was really interesting to come back to that study and those findings, fast forward a few years, and now I myself am a
Mm-hmm.
female entrepreneur. And I think we're going to talk about that shift quite a bit. But when I was doing that research, really, I did not set out to specifically zero in on coaching or community. What I was trying to do was just explore how a sense of belonging, whether it be high or low, affected a female entrepreneur. And I will tell you, it was the most difficult literature review that I have ever done in my life, because when you niche down into women and women in business, there's not a lot there. So, as I did this research, I was lucky enough to actually have access to a lot of female entrepreneurs through where I was working and through a women's global collective that I was a part of. And so I actually had like 100 people who participated in this,
That's awesome.
which makes my findings even more valid and statistically significant if we're going to keep using the academic jargon.
I love it.
Here's what I found though. So my methodology was a dual methodology. So I ran a digital survey. I had like 100 people fill it out. Well, then, because I'm in consumer psychology and I know that people don't know how to accurately articulate their thoughts and feelings, I actually added on an in-depth interview portion. And so about 12 people of those from the survey volunteered to do an hour-long in-depth interview that built on that digital survey. And what I found when I started to run the numbers was really, really interesting. As I'm sure no one is surprised, anyone who's listening who is a female entrepreneur in any way, shape, or form, it's isolating.
Right.
It can be really isolating, especially when you're starting out. And so much of my data showed that and showed this lower level of a sense of belonging, which greatly affects your holistic health. And I'm not just talking about your mental well-being. It slows down your cognitive processing, which affects your productivity. People who have a lower sense of belonging have higher risk of pretty significant health issues. This affects you all across the board. I actually found an article that even said a sense of belonging is actually even baked into Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It kind of gets looked over. But feeling a sense of belonging to yourself first and then to and with others is actually as big of a need as something as basic as like food.
Wow. I feel that completely.
Yeah. But
Especially as an entrepreneur, I feel
absolutely. Well, get ready to feel even more, because here was where it got crazy interesting. So in your graduate studies, right, they're teaching you how to splice and dice data in all these different ways. And so just for the sake of the process, I start looking at all these different things, variables in the way I've collected the data that's going to allow me to see if is anything else statistically significant showing up. And guess what? The women who had voluntarily participated in coaching or community of some kind had a statistically significantly higher sense of belonging by well over a point on a 1 to 5 point Likert scale. It is huge.
Wow.
That took people who were below that 3 and that 2 point whatever range, which is not great, up over the threshold into the high 3s, 4s, and 5s in some cases. Which when you then go back and realize how much that sense of belonging affects the way that you can show up and the way that you can function and your overall health and just like the compounding benefits of this, holy smokes.
Wow. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, I have my own data. We were talking about that before we hit record of like, I know how many people reach their goals, all these things of the clients that I've worked with, which is really cool. But it's really interesting to me to hear the research done by other people on other subjects, and it brings forward coaching, which is very interesting to me because, and I really think this because, and I feel like it's important to recognize not all coaching is equal here. And a lot of people have had a negative experience with coaching. And so we're talking about the good coaching here. We're talking about the ones that it's supportive coaching. It is someone really showing up and not burning you down, anything like that. It's like, I recognize that there's been people that have had negative experiences. We can talk about how to find the right coach, but coaching in general is obviously helpful.
Yeah. And the thing that I love about the study, and I feel so grateful to have been in the situation I was in, to have access to this. These are women of all ages. These are women from around the world. They are not just Western women. I mean, they are English speaking, so I will own the fact that it is skewed. There's not a huge Eastern influence in the research, but there is a global English-speaking representation there. And these are people at all ranges of revenue in all industries. There were no commonalities. There was
That's awesome.
no breakdown of like, okay, well, they were all in this or that or the other. And so to me, that's telling. The other thing, and to kind of build on you saying like, not all coaching. We're not saying just go sign up for the first coach you see.
Right.
Because there's a couple things at play there. One, many of these women talked about how there was a mix. There was a group of people who really wanted exclusively female community and coaching. But then there was plenty of others who were like, you know what, I don't do just female. What worked for them was having this blend, was having this mix. What it came back to was, and I touched on this very briefly, a sense of belonging starts internally. We all too quickly want to jump to a sense of belonging to and with others. And since I did this research, Brene Brown has come out and said the most beautiful thing, right? Like,
yes.
And I'm not going to get her quote directly right, but basically, like, if you're trying to change who you are to belong with others, that is the opposite of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
So finding the right coach is really about finding someone who is in alignment with who you are as a person and your solid self.
Yeah. So true. It's so important. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing all the data behind this.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting to me. You bring all of this, you know all of this, and you're like, but when is the right time? How do I know? So now I want to go from that conversation that you and I had, and I was like, sure, we can definitely talk about this. Here's a few things. What has gone through your mind in your conversations since you and I talked until now?
It's such a ride. Yeah. And so the perspective difference is huge. And here's the thing that I will own. So I've been in some sort of personal therapy for over a decade now. I consider myself someone extraordinarily dedicated to self-awareness, self-actualization, all of these things. And so I do feel like I can put myself in a place, and I shared with you earlier, like I'm not a fool. I'm not going to ignore what's going on in my world right now. Things are really building up steam.
Hmm.
I can feel it, I can sense it, I can see it, and I'm not going to sell myself short. I already, in a matter of weeks since we even spoke the first time, I can see the squeeze happening on my calendar.
Right.
And so I was on a walk the other day. I was starting to feel really overwhelmed. I was like, I don't have a lot of time. What's going on? And my partner was like, hey, we're going to get outside. This is how you ground. We live next to a beautiful bike path, so we're on this walk. What do you want to achieve? What are you trying to do? And why don't you feel like you can get there? What does this look like? And I had told him, as a female entrepreneur, all of a sudden, yes, money is different because money's not everything. You have to have the money to pay the bills, right? And you have to understand that you're responsible. You will eat what you kill, and that's going to ebb and flow. So you also have to have some foresight because that paycheck's not hitting every 2 weeks. At the same time, though, it gives you the freedom to hold space for multiple forms of currency. I am a mom. I have 2 children. They are 9 and 5. They are beautiful and wonderful, and I want to show up for them. And this doesn't just mean having carved out time for family. I need to have the headspace, the energy, the presence. And so what do I need to do every day to be building toward that? And I know about me, I need some structure. If I have a call with someone and I owe them something, it will be done.
Right.
It will be done. But the thing is, like, I know that it's going to help me. I know I need it. It costs money.
Yeah.
And it costs money if you want somebody good.
Right.
Which, by the way, pricing psychology is real. And if anything feels cheap, there's a reason.
And that's so hard as especially a new entrepreneur. Like my prices I feel like are at a good point right now. But I mean, had you seen 2017 version of Amanda's pricing, it would have been quite different. I had to get to that level, but I just increased and increases, as to your point, with demand. Right? Because just like you, I have other things in my life, so I don't want calls on my calendar every day, all day. Can't do that. So I only have restricted time, which then changes pricing. So it happens.
Yeah, it does happen. It happens. And if you can have the foresight for it, right? And so I want to get back to that conversation that I had with him on that walk about, to me, the investment in the coach isn't just money spent. It's not to just get something done. It's to achieve this life goal that I have, which sounds silly because, maybe I work with a coach on something simple, like I want to accomplish A or B, and it feels tangible and tactile. Okay, Chelsea, that's like one thing. But I'm an intentional person, and most of us are, whether we know it or not. 95% of our decision making is in the subconscious brain. Good luck explaining why you're making the decisions you're making. But we all want to achieve this ideal. And so it's like, how do I do that? And to be honest, when after I got done talking to you, I was like, I feel so in alignment. The trust that was built in such a very short period of time between us was like, take my money because that short-term amount of money is going to pay dividends in the quality of my life down the road. Do I get that money back? Do I make $1 million? Who knows? Who cares? Do I have the clarity? Because if I sign up and I step in, guess what? Yes, I want to achieve this thing, but more than anything, I want to achieve it without losing sight of my spot as a mother.
Gosh, that's so good. I love the self-awareness that you have. And for someone listening, I promise I'll bring us right back to what you just said. But the person who's listening who's like, yeah, I want to do these big things in my life. I think so often we get caught up in what you just mentioned of like, I need to do this one thing or hire for this one thing, but never lose sight of the big dream.
Mm-hmm.
And you're articulating something that is actually really hard for me to articulate to a lot of people because I am the coach who's asking, what do you want to do? The 30,000 foot view. Now I'm going to help you hit a 90-day goal. I'm going to do everything in my power because that's usually the amount of time we're working together in those chunks. But I want to know what the big goal is because if we don't know what the big goal is, we can get so lost in the day to day. And it's really interesting. So I love the self-awareness that you have and also the future Chelsea who will use the same tactics, the same things that, like, let's say we were working together over the next 3 months. Yeah, we work together for the next 3 months or maybe longer. A lot of people stay on, but you'll use it forever.
Right.
It's not like you
Yeah.
can stop using it after we're not working together. It's like you learn a system. You learn a process that works for you, not Amanda's process. We find Chelsea's process, and you get to take that forward. And I just love that so much.
Well, and I don't even know, and maybe you have put this together. I'm gonna brain science like nerd out here for a second because from my perspective, what I'm looking for, right? There's this thing called neuroplasticity, right? And the brain has all these pathways that are already paved. Well, the brain has the ability to repave those pathways. It takes some work. It
Right.
takes some work. And here's the thing, I was in in-house marketing for a long time. I know what to do. But here's the flip side of that. I started in management really young. The flip side of my successful career means I had a team to do things for me for the vast majority of my career. You step into entrepreneurship and you're doing it all.
All the things.
Sure, great. I'll sit here and tell myself, here's our plan, here's our strategy, here's how it aligns with our business goals. Yap, yap, yap. But okay, well now same person has to go do the thing.
Right. It feels overwhelming.
Great. That sounds horrible.
Right.
But you have to be able to do that. And so I'm still feeling out how do I do that? So when I'm thinking about, what working with you as an accountability coach, yeah, I have a goal in mind, but along the way, what I'm basically asking you to do is rewire my brain. Can you please help me? Amanda, can you help me
Yes.
repave neural pathways?
I love it. And it's so true.
It is. And it's like when you hear common sense that you're like, well, yeah, duh, but also light bulb moment.
Right.
To me, that's what it is. It's like, I can feel it. I know it's out there, but man, do I know that I need that. And the sense of belonging to really bring it back to that root, right? Like the connection that we have, like we're not even officially working together. And I know I have an advocate.
Yes.
I know I have a support person.
Yeah.
And even though I am not the kind of, I'm a Scorpio, so I'm probably never going to like reach out to you like I'm in shambles, la, la, la. But knowing that increases my sense of belonging.
I love it. It's so interesting to think through it through this lens and how interesting it is for me to kind of look at me, the planner, right? Not that you can tell we did not draft questions. I never do that for podcast interviews because it sounds so boring when it happens. But I was thinking through, okay, if I am to give a list of what to do if someone's trying to find the right coach for them, I did brainstorm what I would say. Because I was thinking, what if you asked me that question and I want to, know? It's very interesting because the first question on my list was, Why is this the time that you're thinking about a coach? And it's really interesting because you've already basically said that for yourself, but it was very quick for me as the coach who's done a ton of discovery calls, some of which that have turned into clients, some of which who have not, which is totally fine, right? We all have to find the right coach for us and at the right time. I have found that the right time is a big piece of this in terms of finding the right coach. And so while you've known that coaching in general would be helpful for you, until a moment, you didn't think it was the right time. You were like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bootstrap this. I did the same thing. And there'll be different times in your career and in mine that we need different coaches for
Exactly.
different
Yeah.
things at different times.
Yeah. I'm going to flip the podcast thing on its head here. I'm going to ask you a question.
Go for it. I'm all here. I'm for it.
Since we're processing this, whether or not,
It's real life.
I'm
Real
going to
life
get coached.
processing.
So here we go. Are there clients you say no to, or people who want to work with you who you say no to?
That's a really interesting question. And the answer is yes, that I say no. It's very difficult for me as Amanda because I really want to help everyone. So that it's actually very difficult for me. I have a hard time with it. But what I've learned is that there's a few things that I know to kind of look for, and it has a lot to do with that timing. If someone just loves me, because I put out a lot of content, so
Yeah.
by the time someone has a discovery call with me, they know that they like me, which is exactly why I put out so much content. From a marketing perspective, that's a very smart idea for coaches to do. And so I put out that content. What you see is what you get. If you could, I mean, you can really tell. If you follow me on Instagram, if you're following me on LinkedIn and you see me, like, I'm the same. I just know a lot more about you when I'm your coach, right? But I show up the exact same way, very much like that. So people typically show up and they know that they already like me. And they often are like, I want to hire Amanda, which is like the biggest compliment I could ever receive. However, if you hire me at the wrong time, it doesn't work. And by the wrong time, I mean the time that you're ready to take the action, regardless of what comes your way. Now, the caveat is I have gone through things that life has turned upside down on me, and it doesn't mean I like jam a square peg into a round hole and I just keep firing through and that's what I would tell my clients to do. No, we adjust and we pivot, but we keep going. So like if something crazy happens in someone's life, which has happened so many times with my clients, and they're like, whoa, I wouldn't have signed up if I knew my house was going to flood 1 week into us working together. And I'm like, this is fine. We can navigate this. The house flood is going to be okay. Like, let's take a few weeks off. We'll bump it out. We do this and let's get you back on track. And they make progress, right? And so it's more about being in the space of, I'm ready no matter what. I'm ready. And Amanda's my advocate. She's not going to push me to do anything that is beyond, but it is, I am going to push a little because that's my job.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so kind of a long-winded answer of.
No, I think it's great. I think it's important because, also with the psychology hat on, there are some red flags. Like to me, as the potential client, there's a wrong answer to that. And the wrong answer to that to me is, oh no, I never tell anyone. No, I can help everyone. And that's why I think it's important to ask that question, because if a coach can't in that time, right, what am I trying to say? As you're getting to know someone, right? If they can't sense out whether or not you're in the right headspace, are they really going to have the skill set, right, to help you navigate those things? Because life be lifing and is not going to stop.
Yeah.
And I love that you say, we're going to take a pause and then we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
And I do this with my kids. It's okay to be upset. It's okay for things to shake you up. You take time, you process it, you move through it, and then you keep going.
Right.
And to be honest, even on the psychological side, where you think about being able to overcome those things and what you're doing for your sense of self and your confidence levels when you do that is huge. It's like my daughter took horse riding lessons. She fell off the horse. They gave her a dusty bottoms ribbon, made her smile, and they put her immediately back on that.
Right.
And there's a reason why that is the metaphor analogy. I never get the two,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
people use because it's true. And
It
so I
makes a
really
lot of sense.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so hard. I mean, there's times one of my favorite things to do, which I usually don't say too much, but I don't do this unless I know you really well. So, just in case anyone is, if you're thinking about this, anyone is like, I would never do this right away. So, just so you know, I
Okay.
would never make anyone do this right away. But once I know you, once I worked with you for a while, I often know what will help the most.
Mm.
Most of the time, it is taking action when you are like, when you said, I know that when I'm meeting with Amanda on Tuesdays, I'll do the thing, even if it's Wednesday night or,
Mm.
or
Yeah.
Monday night, like right
Yeah.
before. Like that happens. Most of my clients actually have learned, and this is fascinating to me because it's worked for most of them. They book the call with me, like we have our weekly call, and they have an hour blocked afterwards and they take action
Yeah.
just right away
Yep.
because they feel really excited about it. But what I do with clients that I know that need it, I actually make them take the scary action with me on the call.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
sending the email that, like, if you've pushed that sucker down 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you are not sending that dang email, like, be prepared that I'm going to say, okay, I want you to share your screen
Push
and
the
we're going to
button.
hit send together.
Love it.
And everyone is happy afterwards.
Yeah.
And realistically, usually I'm like, okay, you can hit send or you can schedule it. Because scheduling sometimes feels easier to
Easier. Yeah.
schedule the email. But we just need that encouragement. We need the belonging of like someone's got my back. No matter how this goes, you've got someone that's going to help you along the way.
It's so powerful. It really is. It's
It
so
really is.
powerful.
And I have coaches too. I think it's always important to notice, to recognize that. I think I'm not saying I have a coach 100% of the time because that's not realistic, but I think if you hire a coach, you should also ask them like, what coaches have you hired?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And they don't have to tell you their names. Like I may not shout from the rooftops all my coaches' names, but I think like I talk very openly. Like I had a book coach when I wrote my book. I didn't know what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
I needed structure, and that's not what I can hold myself accountable to quite a bit of things. Writing that dang book, not one of them.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed that support. I
Yeah.
paid for that support. I had a super structure, and like we need those things. So I think any coach often like because we see the benefit of it. If they're not hiring coaches, then that's kind of a red flag, I would think
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. That's really insightful. I like that.
Yeah. And it's just fun. I also just like having someone, just like people like having me in their corner. I like having someone in my
Yeah.
back pocket to be
Yeah.
like, I can't figure this out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've mentioned my therapy journey, and I took a pause for the first time in 10 years last spring through summer,
Wow.
and then stepped into entrepreneurship and went
I
right
need
back
that
I'd
back
go.
in. Yep. Need
And
those.
now it's not for, the big, scary, hairy things that you're
Mhm.
carrying around your inner child kind of thing. Maybe a little bit, because that's
Yeah.
always relevant. But it's really about, for me, it was, I'm an entrepreneur now. How am I showing up?
Hmm.
If I want to embody who I am authentically, I have to know who I am authentically,
Right.
And so, same thing on my end, like, yes, I need a coach in some ways, but I also feel like, well, how do you start telling people how the brain works and how it evolves and all those things if you stop with the research you did, 2, 3 years ago? Like,
Right.
that's not how the brain works.
Right.
We're evolving. So yeah, I love that. I love that.
That's great. Well, so if someone is looking and thinking, do I need a coach? Because they're listening to this episode because it has something to do with finding out the coach that you want. What would you tell that person to do in this moment of they're listening to this podcast and we're going to ask them to take an action right afterwards? What would you share with them of what to do to explore? Do I need a coach right now? And how do I find the right one for me?
Yeah. So what I would do, and this is a personal thing that I'm exploring, is I would take 5 minutes, unplug from the things around you, let yourself close your eyes, ground, think about where you want to be next year or in 5 years. And don't just think about it. I'm not talking titles or your house or your clothes. I want you to feel what it feels like to be you in your life down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And then think about, what do you think is the thing stopping you from getting there? And are you ready to tackle it?
Good.
Because
That's
tackling
great.
it is actually like a really scary thing to do.
Right.
Like when I was having that conversation yesterday and I was like, oh God, but see if I do it, then I'm acknowledging
Mm.
that I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. It's a big step.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a
And
big
the good
step.
stuff on the other side can be scary too.
Right. For sure. That's awesome. Okay. So take 5 minutes and ask where you want to be, how you want to feel,
Hmm.
what's stopping you.
Yep. Are you ready to tackle it?
Are you ready to tackle it?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to add on my thoughts
Yeah.
from the coaching perspective because I think it goes really right hand in hand because remember that first question was like, why is this the time you're thinking about coach? It's really like if you're ready, if you say yes, I'm ready to tackle it, having support in some
Yes.
way is the answer to do that because you've already acknowledged it's going to be hard. So then really understanding, is there something specific that you do want to tackle? Start the podcast, write the book, whatever, like, is there a specific project versus like, I don't know,
Right.
what it is? Because that could lean you in a direction of a very specific coach, right? I needed a book coach in order to publish my book. I wanted something very, very specific. So that may help guide if it's like, I just need help from someone that I resonate with. They don't necessarily have to have the knowledge because I've helped plenty of people finish their book. I'm not necessarily a book coach, but they knew I would hold them accountable and be like,
Hmm.
did you write? Did you edit? Like, did you find the editor that you needed or whatever? And so we have done that. So it's understanding if there's a specific project and then knowing your budget and your timing is important. So understanding that. But then I would suggest evaluating and choosing 3 main people as your
Mm.
coach or programs, whatever the case is, because it could be group coaching. That's also a part of it as well. So I would say look at your options, narrow it to 3 and make a decision. Make a freaking decision. Set a timeline of like by Friday, I'm going to decide 1, 2, or 3 and then be awesome with that decision. Like, go with confidence, move forward. Maybe you have to have discovery calls, maybe you have to do whatever, but it's like, don't be stuck in analysis paralysis. Because if it is time and you feel like it is time, you will lose the momentum so fast and it'll be harder to get it back if you don't just move.
Yeah. That's fantastic. It's
Thanks.
almost like you're an accountability coach.
Right? It's so funny. I had a discovery call late last week and it was interesting. It was last Thursday at the time of this recording. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because on Thursday, I will be reaching out to her because she was like, well, it'll probably take me like 2 weeks to make the decision. And I said, okay, I'm going to suggest that you make it next Friday it's the last day in February. I'm going to suggest that you should make the decision, whether it's me or otherwise, by Friday. And she said, oh, okay, I can do that. I said, great. On Thursday, if I have not heard from you, I'm going to reach out to you. And she was like, oh my gosh, you are really good at this. And
It
I thought,
sounds so
yeah,
simple, but
yeah.
man, yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Those things are
So, and
hard.
it's like,
It's hard for a lot of people to do.
it's very hard. I mean, if you were to say, Amanda, when you come to Wichita, where do you want to go eat? Analysis paralysis is going to hit me hard. I cannot decide on where to eat. It is the worst question to ask me ever. But I can dang sure hold someone accountable to finishing a book or whatever. It's like I can do
Yeah.
these things, but making a
Yep.
decision about food is not my.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to know these things about ourselves. It's important.
Yes, I tell all my friends like just pick the place. I'll show up.
Exactly.
That's the best form of
Yeah.
love you can show me is picking the place.
Well, that is noted. That is noted for when you come
Yes,
to the shop.
you get to pick.
Okay.
I'll
Deal.
show up.
Done. Okay.
Well, Chelsea, I know everyone is going to want to connect with you. I love what you're doing. Marketing psychology sounds like the coolest title in the world to me. So I think that is so neat. So tell everyone where they can find you and connect with you.
Yeah, so my primary thought leadership residence is on LinkedIn. And then I also have a website. It's the-marketing-psychologist.com. I'm sure there'll be links in
Yes.
the show notes for people so they can find me there, but I would love to connect with people. And I am currently offering a free 30-minute chat for people
Oh,
who want to just kind of dig in and see if this is even something that is applicable to them. So I would encourage you to explore that and see if that's a conversation you want to have.
awesome. I will make sure to have all the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Chelsea.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you. And to everyone else, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and keep being accountable.